Greetings, this is Paul, your Pacific Northwest trail guide. I want to help you pick your next trail to explore, so let's check this one out. Many of the trails people hike have an interesting history that we who travel them today may or may not be aware of. Sometimes that history is just lost, but in those cases where it is not, we have a nice opportunity to enrich our experience of exploration with these stories of the past. There are at least a few stories to consider as you experience this hike to the summit of Mount Hebo in the Oregon Coast Range. The first and foremost of those is to think about how this trail was once used by Native Americans to travel from the Willamette Valley to the coast. Others we'll cover later. On this in-and-out hike, you'll climb from South Lake on the Pioneer Indian Trail for about 2.5 miles to the top of Mount Hebo, and return again for a total of 5 miles. You'll climb a total of 1,100 feet in this high coastal range hike that starts at 2,300 feet elevation at the trailhead and reaches almost 3,200 feet elevation at the peak of the east side of Mount Hebo. There are a few different ways to get to the trailhead for this hike at South Lake, but probably the most reliable and straightforward is to start at the small town of Hebo and turn onto Mount Hebo Road just south of town from Highway 22. Mount Hebo Road becomes Forest Road 14 and continues for almost 12 miles, passing by Hebo Lake and over Mount Hebo, coming quite close to the trail you'll soon be on a couple times. When you're less than half a mile from the trailhead at South Lake, you'll need to turn right onto Forest Road 1428 to approach the parking area at South Lake Dispersed Camping Area. Be advised that using automated directions generated by a Maps app from your location to this trailhead may lead you astray on unnamed logging roads that may or may not be open. I would advise you to stick to this recommended route unless you are familiar with the area and other ways of getting in. No special equipment to recommend for this trail, but it does start at South Lake, which is regularly stocked with trout, so maybe you want to bring a fishing pole? Maybe you can do some fishing after the hike, or hey, why not bring a tent too and camp out if there's room and cook your fish for dinner? To get started on your hike, make your way from the parking area near the large South Lake sign through the little campground loop to the trailhead, which is near the bottom of this loop. The trail climbs up a little hill and you soon leave the campground behind for a more peaceful scene. You'll make your way on this trail for a short way before you cross a forest road and continue on north towards Mount Hebo. After a while, you'll see North Lake off to your left, and when you circle around the north end of it, you'll reach a junction which concludes this section. The junction at North Lake goes off to the left to the west side of the lake and the forest road one way, and continues on to Mount Hebo the other way. Take a hard right here to continue uphill to Mount Hebo. You'll continue about another half mile at a steady climb. Then the trail will turn steeper as you ascend the east side of Mount Hebo. From 1956 to 1978, the top of Mount Hebo was home to an Air Force radar station. The installations are mostly gone now, but the east peak of the mountain here used to be home to the ground-to-air transmitter-receiver portion of the station. This consisted of various antennae used for communication with aircraft, and at least one building to house the radio equipment. There are plenty of images to be found of the primary radar installation on the west peak of Mount Hebo, which housed the equipment that was primarily used for threat detection. But images of the GATR installation on the east peak have eluded me. It may have just been a less impressive sight than the 90-foot dome on top of a 5-story building and smaller surrounding ones at the radar site. After about a half mile ascending that steep east side of the mountain, the trail levels out some and you turn west across the mountain. You will soon notice a steep trail heading straight up the mountain to the right. Take this last steep spur up the valley summit atop Mount Hebo, your final destination. This trail is steep, but not so much so that you should need to crawl up it. If you rather a longer, more gentle route, it is possible to follow the trail further to the Forest Road junction, where you can also follow the forest road to the summit instead. This would probably add almost another mile to the total hike though. After you emerge onto the summit and take your rest on some old concrete tower footings, you may want to explore the valley up here and take in the east and west views, or pick some wild strawberries if you come in the summer. You may consider what the goings-on may have been up on this flattened mountaintop decades ago when it was used as an Air Force radar station. Even before it was a radar station, other structures were erected on this east summit. In 1924, a cabin was built here, and in 1937, a 53-foot lookout tower that remained until the radar station was removed in 1978. When you're ready to return to South Lake, find the steep shortcut trail you scrambled up in the southeast area of the valley edge, and return to the Pioneer Indian Trail back the way you came. Remember to hang a left at that junction near North Lake to stay on the main trail, and you'll soon find yourself rolling back into the South Lake campground area. Let's go over the ratings for this trail. First, we'll talk about the terrain. This entire trail is in great shape, but considering the fits and starts of elevation gain, including the short, steep scramble trail to the summit at the end, I'll give it 2 rocks out of 5 for terrain. For the elements, you'll just need to consider the elevation level and whether there's snow to contend with at times. It gets 2 clouds out of 5 for elements. The top of Mount Hebo is notorious for impressive winds and snow, so you might just do yourself a favor and keep your visit to the summer months. As planned, the distance for this hike is around 5 miles, but you may put on some extra distance checking out South Lake or the valley atop Mount Hebo, so we'll give it 3 boots. And finally, let's rate the climb. Climbing up Mount Hebo is a bit steep, but ultimately you're not covering a lot of elevation for this summit. I'm calling it 2 mountains out of 5. Well, that's it for this edition of Pacific Northwest Trail Guide. I hope I have or will soon help you pick your next trail to explore. I scouted this trail in July of 2021, but trails are always evolving. If you pick this trail and encounter any new features or changes people might like to know about, please help out your fellow explorers by sharing in the comments on this video. This video shows some of the beautiful sights of this trail in what feeble capacity it can render. A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but an experience with all of your senses cannot even be conveyed in pictures or video, so don't take my word for it. Get out there and see it for yourself.